It's John Bowden, and today is our final interview with Alan White. We lost him on May of 2022. He was 72 years old, and when we talked to him, which was, I think, about a year before he passed, he was weak. You could tell by his voice. That's why we transcribed the entire interview. But here's a guy who replaced Bill Bruford in Yes, was their longest lasting drummer, played with John Lennon, George Harrison, an incredible musician. Drummer Alan White on Rock History Music.
Yeah, well, it's taken a long time. The band's been working really hard for so many years, and it feels really good to achieve the 50-year mark, of which I've been in the band 46 years. So, when the band first started, who would have ever known any band would have gone on this long? So, I'm sure people like the Rolling Stones and different bands like that, you look around at each other and go, wow, we made it this far?
Yeah.
A lot of bands last about a year, and then they are no more. Yeah.
Do you remember the first time you actually sat down with the band? I know you had said a weekend before to learn the songs.
And it was about 3 days, but prior to that, a few days before that, I had shared an apartment with Eddie Offord, the band's engineer, producer kind of, and we were out and about one night, and he said, "Look, I just need to stop by the band real quick," and we went down there, and I went with them. And funnily enough, Bill Bruford had left to go have a meeting, probably with Robert Fripp, just to talk about forming King Crimson. And the band that left holding their guitars, and and they said, "Okay, well, I guess we'll pack up." But then Eddie said, "Well, Alan can play this kind of stuff," and I ran through Siberian Khatru with them from the album Close to the Edge, and I guess it made a mark of some kind. Plus, Chris told me that he saw me play with Joe Cocker just the week before, so. I guess they thought I was right for the band, and they came and asked me, and I was in Eddie Offord's flat, and John and Chris came around, and they threatened me, actually, said, "Well, if you're not going to join the band, we're going to, Chris is a big guy, he said, I'm going to throw you out this window." And I said, "Well, look, let's give each other 3 months. I'll give you guys 3 months, and then you give me 3 months to see if I fit in." But little did I know I'd be here 46 years later. So anyhow, as they walked out the door, John turned around and said, "Oh, by the way, Alan, we've got a gig on Monday. Can you learn all the music over the weekend?" And I went, "Oh my God, that's a big repertoire to learn." Anyhow, I just studied for the whole weekend and played the first show in Dallas, Texas.
Have you ever had a really challenging time in the band yet? Was there any time that you felt like, this is too much for me? Was there ever a time you wanted to retire and just be a normal guy?
Yeah, well, this tour we're about to embark on is about 35 shows, so that would be better if you asked me that question about 20 shows in. Obviously you get very, very tired, but you tend to pace yourself when you're a little bit older.
When you were recording, like, Tales of Topographic Ocean, for instance, that was your first studio album. That is such an ambitious, they're all ambitious projects, but that is, to me, when you get, like, a song per side and it's a double album, was that an exhausting process for you? Because that was your first foray with the band recording an actual studio album. How was that for you?
Well, a studio album, Topographic, the first album was Yes Songs, of course.
Yes.
The first studio album was Topographic, and, well, we rehearsed for that album for 6 months in a place called Manticore, which was owned by ELP, with a rehearsal studio. And we spent a lot of time on detail on the different parts of that music, so it took about 3 months to record everything. So it was almost a year-long process to do that album.
Played these songs so many times. is there ever a point where you're thinking to yourself, oh, maybe I don't want to play that one, or else is it a show must go on thing where you guys, yes, they want to hear these songs?
Not really. I mean, yes, music is very challenging to play anyway. And it always keeps your mind happy. It's not like you just let it roll along and think, I know this really well. So, yeah, you've got to think really hard and pay attention to what you're doing all of the time.
With Tony coming back into the band, which, I mean, man, the fans have been...
Yeah, well, he's kind of doing a cameo appearance at the very, very end of the show, playing Yours Is No Disgrace and Roundabout and Starship Trooper. And, you know, I mean, it's a lot of fun having Tony back on stage, and it's quite a blast, really. He played on a cruise with us at the beginning of this year, and then he came and played a couple of times in London. And then he's going to do this whole tour, but he told me, he said, well, you have to watch me and make sure I can make it. And I said, well, of course you can, Tony, come on. You know, he's all right.
Were you nervous when you first played with John Lennon? I mean, I ask a lot of musicians about being starstruck, and I would think that you might have been a little bit because I know you were a big Beatles fan.
Yeah, well, I wasn't really. I mean, I was very surprised when he called me up, and in fact, I thought it was a friend who was playing a joke with me, and I put the phone down on him, but he did call back 10 minutes later and said, no, it's really me, to which I fell off my stool, and then he said, do you want to play a show tomorrow? You need somebody like you. I saw you play in a club the other night, and I said, sure, and he sent a limo the next morning, and I was Heathrow Airport, and Yoko and Klaus Fulman. And then out of the bathroom walks Eric Clapton, and he said, oh, by the way, Eric Clapton's playing guitar. And that was a little shocking, but I was pretty young age when I did that, so I just thought it was my next step in my career, and didn't make too much out of it, but only years later, I realized, you know, what achievement it had been making Imagine. And I went, well, you know, at the time I was just getting on with it.
Prog music fans are very different they seem almost more passionate and more interested in detail than normal music fans do.
Yeah. You know, you've got to work harder to listen to your music, and that's when you get the benefits out of it. Because it's kind of like, you know, it's not easily put together. We spend a lot of attention to detail. So as a result of that, it's harder to listen to because you got to concentrate on where the music is going and what story it's telling and the mood in the music. So that's what makes it slightly different from other things.
What was the most challenging piece of drumming that you ever did with Yes, for you personally?
Well, numerous albums where I think Chris Squire and myself, one of them was, of course, with Leia, playing when we came up with the rhythm and Sound Chaser and Gates of Delirium and all those kind of pieces of music. They're very complex rhythm sections. And then, you know, Drama's got some really great bass and drum work.
When I talked to Dylan, he said that his dad wouldn't let him, when he was growing up, listen to Led Zeppelin. He's sort of a friendly competition between Zeppelin and Yes.
Well, it was actually. It was all down to the Melody Maker magazine because for about 5 or 6 years, around one period of time, we'd win it one year, and then Led Zeppelin would win it next year, and then we'd win it again. And, you know, for about 6 years, it was swapped between the two bands for being the best band in England. So, anyhow, I got to be pretty good friends with them. We were really good friends with Robert Plant, and I'm really good friends with Jimmy Page. But I got to meet John Bonham a few times. But never got to really know him. I just said hi to him, and we had mutual respect for each other, I guess.
Do you find that touring and going out there is actually good for your health? A lot of older rock stars says, I don't want to be sitting in a rocking chair at home. I like to tour because it's actually good for my health.
Yeah. Well, you kind of push yourself a little bit because that's like the kiss of death, you know. I mean, you just sit there and you get so bored when you've been so used to an active life and being on the road and stuff. So I guess as long as you can do it, you go ahead and do it. You don't just retire because you've got enough money to, or, you know, most musicians I know love to play and they want to keep on doing it till they can't do it anymore.
Have you ever had a really challenging time in the band yet? Was there any time that you felt like this is too much for me? Was there ever a time you wanted to retire and just be a normal guy?
Yeah, well, you know, this tour we're about to embark on is about 35 shows, so that would be better if you asked me that question about 20 shows in. You know, obviously you get very, very tired, but you tend to pace yourself when you're a little bit older.
What's your day usually look like? If you're not touring and you're at home, I think the fans would be interested. What does your day look like at home when you're just by yourself?
When I'm not working? Well,
yeah, when you're not working.
Yeah, well, I've got a studio and I have two wonderful Jack Russells and my wife, and we live in a very nice house, and you know, we just live normal life, go and have to see our friends around the neighborhood and going to dinner, and I've got a small studio that I do home recordings.
What advice would you give yourself, knowing what you know now, what advice would you give yourself at 20 years old? Is there anything you'd like to have known back then that you know now?
And when I was 20 years old, I would have liked to have known when I was 20 years old, when I played on the song Imagine, that it would be the song of the millennium, because I never knew it at that point.
Yeah, was that, by the way, since that was a slow song, and my son's a drummer, and he says sometimes the slow songs are the hardest ones to play.
He's right, because you've got to create the mood, and with playing not so many beats and just getting the atmosphere right.
You know, when I was drumming the fill for Instant Karma, I remember I had so much trouble trying to replicate your fill in Instant Karma. I remember going, I don't know why I can't get it done, but I couldn't do it. I found it hard.
You know what? You have to basically split your mind in half. I'm a Gemini, so obviously I have a split personality. But I guess with me playing the shuffle part and then the other me playing the drum breaks, kind of that kind of thing. But my idea at that time, and I was experimenting with a lot of music and doing that, is to play one groove like a shuffle, like Instant Karma is. And then when it comes to the drum break, play more of a rock and roll fill rather than a shuffle fill. That's what really happened, and I didn't realize it. That's such a landmark, because I always remember John Lennon looking at me going, Alan, I don't know what you're doing right then. He said, but keep doing it. It's fantastic.
Make sure you comment on our video, subscribe to our channel, and share our videos. Remember, follow us. It's really important. We're trying to grow our Facebook page right now. We've got 41 years of interviews we're planning on putting on this channel. We're going into the archives lately. And really share our videos. The biggest thing you could do is, of course, subscribe or follow, but share them on the applicable groups or on your Facebook page or anywhere. I'm John Bowden. This is Rocky Stream Music. Take care.